Good morning, students. Am I audible?
Good morning, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
So, are other students joining? Is there some class going on?
No, ma'am, they are just joining.
Okay, fine. Okay, in the meanwhile, we can start the class. Students are still joining, right? So, today we'll discuss about human viruses and a brief history of human viruses, that how they were identified, how vaccines were discovered, and which were the earliest viruses which caused lot of deaths in the history, and how through vaccinations we were able to eradicate those viruses. So we'll try to go through those things, right? And before we start the previous chapter, we'll revise the today's chapter. Before we start the today's lecture, we'll revise the previous chapter quickly. So yesterday we basically discussed about the history of plant virology. So Ishita, can you just quickly tell me that who was the first person who gave the term contagium vibum fluidum, and he is also known as father of virology? Yes, Ishita, please switch on your camera and answer. No, Ishita. Yes, Ayushi, you can answer.
Yes, ma'am. Martinez W. Fledgling coined
Gave
the
this
term
term.
contagion rhythm freedom for virus.
Yes, yes, Ishita. Now, can you tell me what does this contagium vivum fluidum means actually? This is what does it mean? Yes, Ishita. Unmute yourself. Okay, fine. She is not responding. Yes, Devanshi, can you answer this?
Ma'am, I just joined. Can you repeat the question?
My question was, who gave the term contagium vivum fluidum, which the one student has already answered. Now I want to ask that what does this mean? Contagium vivum fluidum. What does these three terms actually means?
I don't know. Actually, in last class, my teams wasn't responding, so I can't able
So
to
you
hear.
you should have watched my recording, Devanshi. My recording is available. So if you miss something, say just try to. watch the recording. That's why recording is available to the students, so that if they miss class, they can go through the recording, right? Yes, Ayushi. Yes, Shakti, you can answer that.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, Shakti, audible. Please switch on your camera also. Yes, I can see you.
Ma'am, it means contagious living fluid.
Yes, contagious living fluid. Fine. Okay. Yes, Shakti, that's fine. My next question would be for who all are there? Let me see. Okay. Sam, can you tell me what is viroid and how it is different from the viruses?
I'm audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah,
Please
so
switch on your camera also.
I've turned my camera on.
Okay, fine.
Okay, so viroids are small circular RNA molecules and
Yes.
they lack a protein coat which is
Coat.
called capsid,
Yes.
and they are uh,
Okay,
yeah,
that's
I
fine.
think that's
That's fine. That's fine. Viroids are subviral agents. They are similar to viruses, but they lack protein coat, whereas viruses have a protein coat. Uh, Viroids, they do not code for any protein. They code for a single protein. They are not encoded for different kind of a protein. So that is the difference. And their RNA, their genome is only made up of a RNA. They don't have a DNA as a genome, which is virus difference from the viruses. That viruses can have both RNA and DNA as genome. And another difference is that viroids can infect only plants, whereas viruses can infect humans, plants, animals, all living. They can infect mammals. They can infect fishes. They can infect all living organisms basically, right? So that is the major difference between viroids and my next question is for Manaswini. Manaswini, can you tell me what are prions?
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah,
Please
my
switch on your
camera is
camera.
just turning on. So,
Yeah.
prions are basically like how viroids are only RNA molecules. Prions are only proteins lacking any sort of basic genetic material, but they are infectious and they can cause diseases like the mad cow disease.
Yes, good, Manaswini. Yes, so my next question will be for yes, Kshitij. My next question is for you, Kshitij. Can you tell me? Yesterday we discussed about one incident in the history, which was tulip mania or tulipomania. Can you tell me what was this tulipomania? Why it is called as a tulipomania? Yes, Kshitij. Am I audible? Please unmute yourself. Okay, Tanvi, this question goes to you. What is tulipomania or tulip mania?
So, it is a virus that is famous for its dramatic effects on the color of the tulip.
Yes, right. At that time, tulips, due to the virus infections, the tulips were showing color breaking. That means the petals were giving mixed color of a white with a pink or white with some other color, and people became so much obsessed with this variegated or a tulip breaking flowers that one bulb of a tulip, viceroy tulip it was called as a, and it was sold in exchange of so many goods at that time. And then can Sanjana, can you tell me that later which virus was identified on this tulip?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Sanjana, please. I cannot hear you, Sanjana. Yes, this question goes to Shivani Mishra. Yes, Shivani, which virus was later identified on this tulip plant then? No? Tridiv, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay. Yes, Tridiv. Yuvraj, Yes, Tridev, go on. Yes, Tanvi.
Potyvirus.
Yes, it was a potyvirus, tulip breaking virus, tulip color breaking virus, which is the potyvirus, right? Which was identified on these tulip plants later. Okay, now the next question is for Yuvraj. Yuvraj, you will tell me that what are Chamberlain filters and how they were used at that time. No, you guys are not studying and going back and not studying, right? Okay, who will tell me how tobacco mosaic virus was discovered? No? Yes, someone has raised hand. No, no one. Okay, students, see, I told you earlier also, these questions are basically your class evaluation also going on, that assessment basically, that how you are attentive in the class and how you are. Now, yes, Namrita, can you answer?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Namrita.
Ma'am, in 1898, MW, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Bijanik.
Gizernik in Netherlands, the cause of tobacco mosaic disease,
Mm-hmm.
like, and named it as contagium vivium
Fluidum.
fluidum.
Mm. Okay, yes, Manaswini, can you add something to it? Then we'll start the class after this.
Yes, ma'am. So, what I remember was that a scientist called Adolf Mayer, he saw that the sap of tobacco was infectious, and he gave, I don't remember the term, it was a very long term, but it was called, it translated to mosaic because that was the pattern that was visible on the leaves.
Yes, yes. See what they did, the Chamberlain filter was used basically in those days to retain the bacteria. So to clear or to purify water or to filter water, they were not having any kind of other method. So the Chamberlain filters, they were made of a porcelain basically, and the pores were so small that they used to retain bacteria, because at that time bacterial diseases were known. But when they saw this tobacco which was showing some mosaic symptoms, so they tried, they prepared some sap out of those tobacco infected leaves, and when they passed that sap through those Chamberlain filters, and the filtrate, or that the filtrate that was obtained, and when through that filtrate, when they tried to inoculate the plant for to check the infection whether it has some pathogen or not, the symptoms were again seen. So at that time they realized that this is not bacteria, this is some other kind of a, maybe it's some poison which is produced by the bacteria or some other kind of a agent which is causing the diseases. So that was how Chamberlain filter was used to discover the viruses in the later study. So tobacco mosaic virus was the first virus to be studied and identified, and later there were so many studies. I mean, the crystallization of a protein was studied, that it has a protein, it has a nucleic acid, other lot of studies. The in 1977 they started using ELISA for the identification. In 1983 they started using the PCR for the identification. So with the advent of molecular and serological techniques, the identification of the viruses became more easy. So in the later, then the sub-viral agents such as viroids, prions, they were also identified, and Prusner was the person who identified prion diseases, and he got the Nobel Prize for that. And Diner was the person who identified the viroid. So subviral agents after that which can cause diseases were also identified when the techniques or good techniques were available for the identification of the viruses, right? So that was about the yesterday's lectures. Today's lecture we are going to study about the brief, see, when we talk about the genome of the virus, it is same RNA and DNA, whether it is a plant virus or a human virus. When we talk about the structure is also same. So difference is basically how the way the human virus cause infection in the humans or animals, and the plant virus cause infection. That is the different. The mechanism is different there, right? Right. The management is different. The management of plant virus, I told you, is very difficult, and we need to be. It's the prevention is better than cure. It applies there. But in case of a human viruses, vaccines are available. Therapeutic, some antiviral drugs are also available, but the sure shot management for any kind of a human viruses is definitely a vaccine. So whenever we identify any new virus, or whenever there is a incidence of the new viruses in the form of epidemic or a pandemic, we always go for the first thing is that we start developing vaccines. So how vaccines are developed, I'm not going to discuss. Maybe somewhere in the higher lectures I'll tell you that there are few ways through which in the management part I'll discuss that how attenuated or killed viruses, or how there are other methods to develop a vaccines which are more commonly used. So today we'll discuss just the brief history. Is my PPT visible to you all?
Yes.
Yes. So when we start about the history of human viruses, so there are certain images from the history, or certain this is a hieroglyph basically, which is known as the ancient Egyptian art from Memphis, the capital of ancient Egypt, which was drawn around 3700 BC. So in this, they show a Ruma, which is a temple priest, and he is clearly showing the typical clinical signs of a paralytic polio. You can see one leg is thinner than the other one, and he is a limping foot. You can see here clearly a limping foot is there. So that means these diseases were prevalent from the beginning. Like later, many mummies were discovered, which were when the cause of their death was discovered, it was found to be some smallpox or some other kind of a pathogen. So they were present there since ages. But yes, how their management at that time was done, or whether it was done or not, is a very difficult question, because these kind of mummies, or these, when they were discovered, and when the people tried to identify it, they died at a very young ages, those people, like maybe 35 or maybe before that. So that means the pathogens or viral pathogens were causing the death. So that means no cure was available definitely at that time. Now this is the basically the pharaoh. It's a ruler. Siptah rules Egypt from 1200 to 1193 BC, and he died suddenly at the age of 20. His mummified body lays undisturbed in his tomb in the Valley of the Kings until 1905, when the tomb was excavated, right? Then the mummy's left leg was withered and foot extended like a horse hoof. Again, it showed the clinical symptoms of paralytic polio that time also. So this preserved mummy show that again there is a one more person basically who died, and those mummies, when they were excavated, they showed that basically he died of a smallpox at the age of 35 in around 43 BC. So these are some of the historical records which shows that the viruses were present since the maybe life was there, and people were dying due to the viruses. So those historical records shows us the presence of the viruses since the humans are present, right? Then the practice of immunizations dates again. We use vaccination, but this practice was again since many years. Like for example, Buddhist monks, they used to drink snake venom to confer immunity to snake bite. And variolation, basically variolation is a technique where the smearing of a skin tear with the cowpox to confer immunity to the smallpox. This is how the vaccine for a smallpox was discovered. So it was very commonly practiced in the 17th century in the China also, but they were more of a crude form. But yes, Ishita, you want to ask something? So they were not all.
Actually, my device earlier my device wasn't working. That's why I switched my device. Sorry.
It is fine. No, that's fine. That's fine, Ishita. You can mute yourself now. Yes. So those were not very, they were in a very crude form. That was done in a very crude form, not a proper methodology was developed. So again, the like smallpox endemic was there in China in 1000 BC. Again, they used to practice variolation, which involves inhalation of the dried crust from the smallpox regions like snuff. Or in later modification, they used to also inoculate the pus from a lesion into the scratch of the forearm. So this was a crude way of getting immunity from the pathogen. Basically, vaccination, a crude form of vaccination was practiced at that time also. This was being done. Then this is just a variolation, is a obsolete method. Obsolete means which is not practiced today, some very old method of immunizing patients against smallpox. They used to infect them with the substance or some part of the pustules of the patient with the mild form of a disease, and then disease then usually, agar wo disease, if that disease takes place also, that was in a very mild form, right? Then it was contracted naturally and you were not variolated at that time. The method was very popularized in England in 1721 to 22 by Lady Mary Wortley, and it has been known by the Turks, Chinese, and other people. So this was a form of immunization which was being used by many peoples in the various part of the country also. So this was being done. Then yes, Edward Jenner, we all know, he is a very famous person. In 1796, he tried to do some kind of experiment. Basically, he observed, he there was one observation that people who were working with the cows, or because cows were infected by a cowpox, right? Cowpox is a milder form of a smallpox. Smallpox infect the humans. So he noticed one thing, that those people who, because they work with the cow, so they get infection also, they get recover also. So those people, if they get infected by a smallpox, they were not showing much symptoms, or they were altogether like affected. They were not affected by the smallpox disease. So the smallpox was a deadly disease at that time. So he vaccinated an 8-year-old boy, which is who was James Fifth, and with the material from a cowpox lesion on hand of a milkmaid. And James had never had smallpox, developed a small lesion at the site, just a small lesion at the site. Earlier also, we all have some vaccination marks in our arms, right? So we were that leave some kind of a marks on your, we get fever also when we get vaccinated sometimes. So this is way our body is reacting to those kind of a pathogen or weakened pathogens that are given to us in the form of for immunization, right? Then again he challenged the boy with the material from a real case of a smallpox, and this is just a small story which I took from a website where they just explained that how he inoculated him and how he saw that he is not showing any symptoms and how it worked out. So Edward Jenner, he wanted to conquer the smallpox, and one day he observed an ordinary milkmaid and get infected by a cowpox. So, noting this common observation that milkmaids were generally immune to smallpox, Jenner, he got a, he got a thought that the pus in the blister that made milkmaids received from the cowpox protected them from a smallpox. So he had that idea in his, or thought in his mind, that why they are not getting infected with the smallpox, because they already had a cowpox in their lives. So this is how they are getting saved from the smallpox. So he tested his hypothesis by inoculating James, and he scraped pus from the cowpox blister and on the hands of this. Then he inoculated Phillips in both arms that day, subsequently producing that boy a fever, a small fever and uneasiness, but not a full infection. So later he injected again the Phipps with the variolous material, but then no disease was followed. The boy was later again challenged with the infected material and again showed no sign of an infection. So eventually this gave rise to the concept of a vaccination. See, his concept was not easily accepted. He died in 17, before his vaccination was given approval after his death only, much later after he died, right? So before that also people were not ready for this thing, that they should be infected with some pathogen and that will give their protection. No, people were not ready. It was not accepted procedure. It was very late that in 1840 the British government banned the variolation, which was actually a crude form of a technique, and the use of a smallpox to induce immunity, and provided vaccination again. Then they actually said that okay, the vaccination is a good way to prevent again the pathogen. So this is how the vaccination was started, right? Then 1881 and 1885, Louis Pasteur, we all know that he developed a vaccine against anthrax and rabies, and exposing the pathogen. He just weakened those pathogens basically. He did not kill them, he weakened the pathogen, and those pathogens were introduced. Then in 20th century, the French physician Albert, and they developed a tuberculosis vaccine also. Usually when we use attenuated vaccines, so the problem with attenuated viruses is that mutations are possible. So what are attenuated vaccines? Attenuated vaccines, they consist of a live or a whole bacterial cells or viral particles that are treated in such a way that they have reduced virulence. They will not cause disease or much larger symptoms, but within the host they can retain their ability to provoke an immune response. Yes, Manaswani.
Ma'am, isn't tuberculosis treated through antibiotics?
It is treated through you're forgetting, in the childhood you get a vaccine for a BCG. That is the vaccine also, right? So
Yeah.
in the childhood there's a vaccine, there's a proper vaccine being developed, but apart from that also, I mean, people get this tuberculosis, Mycobacterium tuberculosis. This is a bacteria which is always there in our body, right? And
Right.
whenever our immune system is weak, and whenever we are weak due to some other causes, it causes diseases.
Right.
So we are vaccinated, but yes, this is in the childhood a proper shot of a vaccination is given so that you don't get infected at the earlier stages. But later stages, yes, tuberculosis can always come and infect us, and then proper treatment is through the medications. Then at that
Okay.
stage we don't take vaccination, right?
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So the problem with the attenuated virus was that the mutations are possible, and in some rare cases the vaccine can cause disease instead of preventing it. So this happened in case of a polio viruses also. We used to hear a lot of stories that yes, children, they used to get polio virus after taking the vaccines also. So this was due to these causes basically, right? So for this reason, the 19th and 20th century researchers, they developed vaccines against pertussis, influenza, and other pathogens by killing the pathogen entirely, either by heat or formalin. So we use those diluted versions were used to develop vaccines, and nowadays we don't even need this. We just need a part of a genome, or RNA vaccines are available, in which there is no we don't have any that it can cause a disease in the human, or it can revert back to cause disease or mutation kind of a thing. So with the advent of a time, the new techniques for developing of a vaccines have come up, right? So again, the Ivanovsky was one of the founder of the virology. Again, he gave about the tobacco plant. Okay, this is one, the plant viruses. So here are the notable work and scientists and the year of a day. See, I don't want you all to remember history. History is, I'm telling you, just to remember few things, but the milestones or landmarks you should know, like vaccination, like how tobacco mosaic virus was discovered. I don't want you to cram that you should remember that every year which was discovered. No, this is just to tell you that how eventually we got the discovery of the viruses and related diagnostic methods and the management techniques, right? So this is just a year of discovery, and like I'll just go for Walter Reed in 1900. He told that spread of yellow fever is by mosquitoes. Then he discovered the bacteriophages, viruses that eat bacteria. Then Stanley, he basically crystallizes the tobacco mosaic virus, which shows that they have a protein also. Then we have Baltimore here, who discovered reverse transcriptase in retroviruses, basically. So just a small landmarks. You don't need to remember all of this. Virus structure is similar. I've just put this figure just maybe for a revision, but it is the similar. Genomes are DNA or RNA. It could be single or a double-stranded. So viral genome, two types, DNA or RNA. DNA could be linear or a circular. Again, RNA could be linear or a circular. Again, linear could be single-stranded and a double-stranded. Circular could be single-stranded and a double-stranded. And similarly, RNA also. And the examples of these are given. So when you studied the classification, there you studied the example with example. I'll explain in detail about the how on the basis of genome the viruses are being classified, right? So human viruses, there are numerous, if you want to name human viruses, starting from HIV to the corona, which is today's causing today's pandemic. Symptoms we have discussed earlier: flu-like fever, rashes, cough, fatigue, loss of appetite, lot of symptoms. Gastrointestinal problems are there. Symptoms could vary with the persons also. It's not that the short symptoms for particular disease, that only one particular type of the symptoms they'll cause, right? Diagnosis is same as case of a plant viruses, ELISA, PCR, RT-PCR. Yes, in case of a human viruses, when we'll study the diagnosis in theoretical part and practical, some other method, some other methods, especially for the human viruses, are available, which we usually go for. So we'll try to study those in detail. Then vaccines. So if we talk about the management or prevention of human viruses, how they can be managed, because we cannot stop viruses. You go out, if your immune system is little weak, you definitely get infected by a particular virus, right? So definitely a therapeutics should be available in the form of vaccines or other treatments. Yes, some antiviral drugs are also there, so that we can manage these kind of pathogens, right? So vaccines are the short ways of managing a particular virus. While we do have a limited number of antiviral drugs, for example, we can treat HIVs or influenzas other using these drugs, but the primary method of controlling viral diseases is by vaccination. So which is basically, because we always feel, see, one for this, for example, this corona has come, right? Why we are giving importance on the vaccination? Because we know once we are vaccinated, and again virus will remain always there. This coronavirus is not going anywhere, right? It is there, it is there, it is there with the people. It will come and infect again and again us. But if we are vaccinated, so impact of the virus will be reduced. It might cause viral symptoms like जो हमारा common influenza virus होता है या flu होता है, it might come, it becomes seasonal. It might become seasonal. It might just come and within change of a season we might get flu like symptoms, we might get some fever, and then we'll be fine because we'll be vaccinated. If we are vaccinated, so that means it cannot cause the number of deaths का जो rate है वो until and unless it changes drastically, right? Until and unless it changes drastically, so that altogether a new virus strain come up and it is more virulent, it will not going to happen, right? So this is how vaccination is a way which is intended to prevent outbreaks by building immunity to a virus or virus. We will build we will be immune to that kind of a similar kind of a pathogen, right? It won't affect us as such, right? So this is how vaccines are given. Then antiviral drugs are being used. These drugs have a limited success in curing viral diseases, but then again in many diseases they have been used to control or reduce the symptoms in many cases. These drugs, they can inhibit the virus by blocking the action of one or more of its proteins. It is important that targeted proteins, they should be encoded by the viral genes, that these molecules are not present in the healthy host cell. So in this way viral growth is stopped or it is inhibited without damaging the host. So there are large number of antiviral drugs which are available to treat infections, mostly for HIV. There's a heart therapy which is we call. So there's a combination of a different drugs which is being used to cure HIV patients. So these I'll study. We'll just go through the few important viruses which are being either eradicated or we are being vaccinated for those viruses. So we don't see those viruses in a, they don't impact that much today our health, right? Polio, we know, I mean, these days we don't see, but when we were in school at that time, one or two children in the class, they were using crutches or they were affected by this kind of a polio virus. So it was very common, and the cause was basically proper vaccination was not done, because vaccination is since there long time for a polio virus. So either proper vaccination is not done, or some wild cases of a polio where through the vaccination polio can take place in some people. So that was the main cause. But today we don't see the polio virus because this has been eradicated from many parts of the world. Only few parts such as Bangladesh or maybe Pakistan and some other countries, the polio is still there. So in 2014, 27 March 2014, India was polio free. It was given by the WHO, World Health Organization. And how it was polio free? Because World Health Organization in collaboration with the Indian government, there were lot of projects were running out in a National Center of a Disease Control, NCDC Delhi. WHO were giving lot of funding for the polio vaccination program. So you might be hearing maybe after 1 month or 2 months every day in a radios or in a TV, they used to give like polio drops, do boond polio. It was oral polio ka oral vaccine aa gaya tha, right? So they were vaccinated. Children were vaccinated at a war front like situation. Like those children who were not able to come to the dispensary, then people were allotted to visit home to give polio drops to children. So इस scale पे vaccination क्यों हुआ? So that we can eradicate this disease from India. So this is how vaccination at a larger scale is required to eradicate a particular disease. So lot of funding is required. World Health Organization they help every developing country to do such kind of a campaigns, right? So in US and other countries also this has been already eradicated. Rubella is again another virus. It is spread by coughing and sneezing, and usually it is dangerous for pregnant women and developing baby. So pregnant women, they are given vaccination for the rubella virus also. So if an unvaccinated pregnant woman get infected with rubella, she can have a miscarriage or baby could die just after the birth. So usually after the second trimester or a first trimester, the vaccination is given to the pregnant women. So also she can pass the disease to developing baby who can develop serious birth defects. So this is very harmful. Measles, we know that measles were at one time, they were very dangerous things to develop. So we can get measles just by entering a room where person with the measles has been there. Transmission rate was very high. They are very contagious and they can be very serious for children. Say unvaccinated people can get measles while traveling also. So anyone who is not protected against the measles at risk. So measles, mumps, MMR, measles, mumps, rubella, this kind of a vaccine is given to the children before the age of the 5. There are 2 shots which are given. So this is not seen very commonly these days. Whooping cough, again the vaccination is given for a whooping cough. It is a bacterial disease basically and very contagious disease and can be very deadly for the babies also. So they are vaccinated at the birth for this BCG basically. Rotavirus is again a very contagious disease and it causes diarrhea in a very young infants basically, newborn babies. So they become dehydrated because of the disease. They need to be hospitalized and it is they can die also if not treated. Rotavirus is one of the first vaccine an infant can get, and rotavirus can be prevented by vaccinating the children with this vaccine. Then mumps. Mump is basically puffy cheeks or swollen jaw. The swelling of this is swelling of the salivary gland. So today or these days also some people suffer from the mumps. Yes, they are being vaccinated, still they suffer from these kind of a minor diseases, but yes, it is there. So MMR vaccine protects against mumps, measles and rubella. It is being given to the children. Chickenpox. Chickenpox used to be very common maybe 20 years back. So children, they used to get chickenpox, but now the vaccine for chickenpox has been developed. So children who are being vaccinated for the chickenpox, even if they get chickenpox contact, they get like this infection, the impact is very low. Otherwise, its impact is very bad. You get a lot of scars and bristles on your body. There are pustules basically, and those watery pustules are very painful. There's high fever. Those pustules can be inside your mouth also, and they are all over your body, and it is very bad basically. So but nowadays we have a vaccine for chickenpox. So those who have taken this shot, they are, even if they get infection, they don't get that much severe, right? Then smallpox vaccine. The smallpox was a major cause of death in 20th century, around 300 million people, and it probably killed more humans than any other virus. Then in 1966, agreement was made by World Health Assembly, which is known as a World Health Organization. So they started an eradication program for this particular disease. So at that time, it was still endemic in 31 countries, even in India at that time. So goal was basically to remove the or eradicate the disease using the vaccination. So we get vaccination for the smallpox also. So following mass vaccinations, disease detection, containment, they were the eradication programs which were developed at that time. So it took around 13 to 14 years to campaigns throughout the world to eradicate this particular disease in 1979. So this is how they were able. So the 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 this means that today's lecture, if we want to conclude, it means viral diseases are deadly. Viral diseases can cause death, lot of deaths, yes, in a short time if the transmission rate is very high, and they can be managed by the vaccination. So for the management of any viral disease, we don't depend upon the therapeutics such as antivirals or other things. They are just the supplementaries. Antivirals can be given when you have a viral. When you go to the doctor, doctor says you have a viral. Doctors usually don't recommend you any medicine. They'll say wait for 5-10 days, you'll be fine. Sometimes they recommend you antibiotics just because sometimes when you are infected by the virus, you can get infected by the other bacterial infection also. So to combat that, they give you antibiotics. They don't give you antibiotics to kill the virus. No, that cannot be done. So virus will be there for its own. There will be incubation period, whatever the time, and then it will go away. You'll be fine after a certain period of a time, right? So this is how it happens. So vaccination is the short mechanism or the way by which the viruses can be managed, right? So is there any question for today's lecture? It is open for discussion. And one point, today's question, I'm not giving you any question or any quiz. So today's, I want to discuss about the coronavirus pandemic. So I want to know from you all, basically, that according to you, why do you, what do you think that this coronavirus pandemic has become so severe? Uh, why we are not able to manage it? I mean, it's been the second year, and why we are still waiting for the second or the third wave? Why? Yes, Manaswani, switch on your video and answer.
Okay, ma'am. My camera is just switching on. So this is my theory. So we already know that the coronavirus is an RNA virus, and we learned, I think, in 11th or 12th that RNA viruses mutate and not mutate, they replicate very, very quickly. So when if you have more replications during a shorter duration of time, then the accuracy of replication can go down, which means that there's higher chances for mutations, which is why even though now we've developed the vaccine and there are still cases of people who have received both doses but still get infected with the Delta variant. So that means that it says variant, right? So that means it's a mutation. So because of that's why, first of all, and one more thing is that in many places, people are not social distancing enough. They're not following the laws that are supposed to be followed during a pandemic. So that makes it so much easier for the virus to spread from person to person. And as it spreads, the mutations increase, and that makes it more difficult to combat.
Yes, Manaswini, you are actually right, because the RNA viruses, they replicate very fast, and because of replication, they are replicating fast, there are chances of error. Because of the error, the mutations will take place, and every now and then we'll get a new strain of the virus. So these mutations can lead to a virus being more virulent also, or a less virulent. So chances are mostly that they become more virulent and they become more severe form, they come back in a more severe form. So this is the reason that we are not able to manage it. See, this is for the most viral diseases. It is for the dengue virus also. It is for the influenza viruses also. Okay, maybe I'll try to take one lecture on this, that why there is a recombination in the viruses, what are the other causes, why influenza viruses, there is a lot of recombination, H1N1, H1N9, H1 N5. I mean, there are so many strains are available. So you are developing vaccine for one particular strain. What about the other strain? They are coming and they are infecting. So either we need to develop some cocktail kind of a vaccine for 5 strains in one go, or we need to keep developing new vaccines every year to manage these viruses. And in case of a coronavirus also, the problem was like educating the people. It was very difficult to educate the people. It was very difficult to tell them that social distancing is actually required. Mask is actually required. Today also, these days we are wearing masks, we are using everywhere. But still I see many people, you go anywhere, you go outside, there are taxi drivers, they are not wearing, you go outside, there are, people in the shops, they are not wearing it because they feel that nothing, today also people say nothing happens,
Hmm.
it doesn't matter. So education of the people in a right way is very important, that we need to educate them that this will happen. It's like a air pollution. You tell people about the air pollution, they'll say what air pollution, nothing happens. And these days around 70% of the children in Delhi NCR, they have a respiratory problem because of the air pollution. So to educate people is the right thing. And then another important point is the preparedness of the pandemic. Yeah, sorry, I got a call. It's connected from my mobile. So, what was I saying? I just lost it. I was talking about basically that the more aware people are about a particular disease, that how they spread, and the there are more chances that the disease we can manage. And about the coronavirus, yes, preparedness of a particular country for every pandemic is required. You saw the first wave last year. We were not having masks. We were not having PPE, the personal protective equipment. Doctors were working without that. Whereas to treat the coronavirus patients, you need a PPE, personal protective equipments. That means the whole kits you need to require. So the preparedness of a particular country to deal a particular virus or a pandemic is also very important. That how much money we are investing in the healthcare, how much amount in a every year we are investing for a new, because you, am I audible? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So how much, see, there was in a second wave, we saw that hospitals were not there. There were not hospital beds. So that means our healthcare facilities, we need to improve them. We need to improve, we need to channelize more funds into the healthcare or the hospitals also, because at the end we are, we are the citizen of this country, and all the citizens of India or any country, they have right for the basic medical facility. So people should not die because of the facilities which are not available, healthcare facilities or basic facilities. So the everywhere, the education of the people, the preparedness of a particular country to develop to for such kind of a pandemics, that how much healthcare fund is available so that we have enough resources to face these kind of a pandemics. And then prevention, that research, right, scientists research. So how much are research and scientists, they are developing, they are giving, how are they able to develop the vaccines on their own? Do we have the sufficient funds? Do we have the sufficient facilities to do such kind of a things? So all these things are very important to deal with a particular pandemic or any kind of a pandemic or epidemic diseases. It is very important, right? So alone we cannot do anything. We require people to participate equally for them, to taking proper precautions, to take proper sanitation practices, to take proper care. ये जो एक एटीट्यूड है ना इंडियन लोगों का, कुछ नहीं होता है, this is very wrong. And कुछ नहीं होता से ही it happens so much that we are at this stage. In the second wave, lot of people lost their near and dear ones. It was very painful to see people dying without getting health care, people not getting oxygen, people were not getting medicines, people not were not getting hospital beds also. So it was really painful to see that people are dying, and many young lives were lost, many people, I mean, lot of a phase came where you were mentally so distressed, you were mentally, we all were so stressed that what will happen next. We were closed in our homes, we were not going out, we were not going anywhere. We were just thinking that uh, okay, we don't come to such situation that we might need a hospital bed, because hospital beds were not available. we had many faculty colleagues who got infected in Amity. Many children lost their parent. Many children's parent got infected. Siblings, I mean brothers, sisters. So situation was very bad at that time. So from this situation, actually, I guess we all need to learn that how to behave. Appropriate human behavior in such pandemics is required, definitely, along with the other government support and other things in the healthcare and other facilities. It is very important, right? So that's all for today's lecture. I guess we are towards the end. So for attendance, please, all of you, please switch on your camera so that whenever I call your name, I should see you, right? Yes, Adish Mishra.
Present, ma'am.
Yes, Athoiba. Athoiba. Ayushi Jain.
Present, ma'am.
Sam.
Present, ma'am.
Divyansh. Devanshi Sharma. Divyansh.
Present, ma'am.
Ishita Arora. Janvi Singh.
Present, ma'am.
Kshitij Singh.
Present, ma'am.
Manaswini. Manaswini is there.
Present, ma'am.
Namrita Pal. Yes.
Present, ma'am.
Nandini Raj. Nehal Joshi.
Present, ma'am.
Rupal Joshi.
Present, ma'am.
Sahiba.
Present, ma'am.
Sanjana.
Present, ma'am.
Shakti.
Present, ma'am.
Shivani.
Present, ma'am.
Tanvi.
Present, ma'am.
Tridev.
Present, ma'am.
Vivek.
Ma'am, Vivek is having network issues.
Okay. Yuvraj.
Present, ma'am.
Yukta. Okay, students. So I'll see you day after tomorrow. We have a practical class. Tomorrow, I guess we don't have a class. So I'll meet you day after tomorrow, right? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Excuse me, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, who's this?
Ma'am, Ishita. Ma'am, actually, there is some network issue at my end because of weather, bad weather. I was unable to.
It's okay. At the end, I download the Excel also who are present, so no issues, right? You can just tell me. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.